So I think we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Mary Hess. I'm REA's networking coordinator, and I want to welcome you to this Zoom meet and greet with our new executive secretary, Dr. Lakisha Lockhart. So a couple of things. First, if everybody could mute when you're not talking, that would be very useful because that keeps background sound. And sometimes even if you're unmuted, but somebody else is talking and it comes through, it can mess up the sound. So if you could mute, that would be great. We're going to let Dr. Jack Seymour talk a little bit about the process, and then we will let Lakisha introduce herself, and we'll go for questions and answers from there.
You ready for me to go, Mary?
Yes. So Jack, please.
Okay. Let me begin by thanking two people. One, Lucinda, for her many years of leadership and contributions. And as you would guess, she helped us immensely in the search by helping us clarify the job description at the beginning. And then she spoke with, I think, 5 potential candidates who were in the process and wanted to know more about it and spoke with Lucinda. And she'll be continuing as your partner for a little while, Lakisha, right? And so there's a really nice overlap there. The second person I want to thank is Dr. Mary Young. Mary was co-chair of the committee, and the people on the committee are Drs. Maureen O'Brien, Josh Lundy Whitler, Hanan Alexander was ex officio, and Gina Robinson was a member at connecting with our PhD students. So that was the committee. We established an international search, and we received candidates from around the world. We were delighted by the candidates that applied, and then those that we encouraged to apply. Some people thought very thoughtfully through the process and decided this was not the time for them to apply. Others did. We came down to 3 finalists, all of whom we were delighted with, and honestly, friends, after the interviews, we were also delighted with them. So I hope you hear. And in the process, Dr. Lakisha Lockhart emerged as our candidate. And we're absolutely, as the search committee, we were delighted to send it on to Hanan and the REA board. And we were delighted that Dr. Lockhart was willing to agree and come on board. Let me tell you the categories that we looked at when we were evaluating people. We looked at their knowledge and vision of REA and their participation in REA. We looked at their perspective on religious education. We looked at their commitment to the inclusive vision of REA, which, as you know, is international, interreligious, and intercultural are the words we use to describe it. And then we looked at administrative skills and technological proficiency. So those were the categories that the committee worked with in interviewing people and interviewing the references and then making our decision. And again, as I said just a minute ago, the search committee was delighted to advance the name of Dr. Lakisha Lockhart, and I'm delighted to advance her at this moment to speak to you all. Blessings, everybody.
Oh, thank you. I'm still very just excited and humbled. So thank you, Jack. I appreciate you. And as you mentioned, the process of the interview and checking references and doing all of that, I'm beyond grateful. So, and I'm excited. So I guess I'll just tell you a little bit about myself, and then I will be happy to, just have a conversation. If there are questions you have for me or things you want to know about me, that's really, I just want us to connect during a time where it's a little difficult to connect. We thought that this was really important just to let you all know that I'm here, I'm accessible. I am by no means Lucinda at all, and I will be. But I am me, and I will always do the best that I can. And she is with me for helping me along the way for a couple more months that I am ridiculously grateful for. So thank you. So as Jack mentioned, Lakisha Lockhart is my name. I was born and raised in Waynesville, Missouri, town about that big. And probably around middle school-ish, we moved to Fort Benning, Georgia, military family. So then from there, we kind of moved a little bit to Columbus, Georgia. And that's where my family settled there. So that's kind of where I call home, because that's where my parents are still at now. So that's kind of home. And then from there, I did undergrad at Claflin University in Orangeburg, South Carolina, which is a historically Black college and institution, which was wonderful and amazing. And then I did my Master's of Divinity with a concentration in pastoral care and counseling at Wesley Theological Seminary in Washington, D.C., which was a wonderful. And then from there, I went and did a second master's in society and ethics at Vanderbilt University. And I did that for a year. And then I took a year off because my brain needed to rest. And then while my brain was resting, I was working as an executive assistant at MEA Federal Credit Union. So I got that bank experience in there. While I was there, had a great time. Also taught Zumba. I love to dance and move, for those of you that don't know. So did all of that, a wonderful, amazing thing. Then got accepted into the PhD program at Boston College. So moved to the Arctic tundra that I like to call Boston. As you can see, I'm a Southerner, so I had to adjust to the winters. And thankfully, while I was there, I had some amazing folks. One who's actually on this call, I'm totally going to call her out, Cindy Cameron, who was a part of the doctoral cohort during this time, and one of the folks that was there before me and made my transition there amazing. And so spent time there, also ended up while during the program, got married to an amazing human being who I think is probably one of the best human beings in the planet and ever, who is just wonderful. And, you know, through comps and all of it, he was there. So those of you that know, no. So that was wonderful. And then kind of in my last year, I got an amazing appointment to work for the Stream Youth Theology Institute at the Samuel DeWitt Proctor School of Theology at Virginia Union University in Richmond, Virginia, and very excited about being somewhere warmer. Made that transition where I got to work with some amazing young people, as well as some amazing colleagues at Virginia Union. One who I see is on here also, Denise Jansen, gonna call you out. That made my transition there wonderful as I was finishing up my PhD and directing the program. So finished the PhD in 2018, and then I was able to join the faculty at VUU working with religious education and practical theology, which was amazing. Was teaching classes and all of that. And then this past year, I got an offer to teach at Chicago Theological Seminary. So that is where I have just transitioned to now. So I started there July 1. So I'm very excited to be there. And yeah, but I'm doing it all from afar, clearly, because we are in pandemic times. And thankful for grace during this time that I can teach online. They already have a very huge online presence, but I'm able to do all of my classes online from here. So maybe hopefully in the spring, we'll see what wants to happen in the world. But other than that, that's a little bit about me. I have, in the process of all of this, I had a little person. Last April, I had a little person. He is wonderful and amazing, and he is napping right now. So we're in good times. So yeah, so that's a little bit about me, kind of my trajectory. I don't know why I'm having all these alerts come into my computer. I don't know if you can hear them. If you can't, I apologize. And let's see, anything else about me? As you can see, I love religious education. I've written a couple of articles here and there. No big book yet. It's in the works. I'm working on it. But I felt a call for religious education, since undergrad. I knew I wanted to help people. I didn't know what it looked like. I had some amazing Black women in my life that introduced me to womanist theology, that introduced me to Alice Walker and Toni Morrison, and some amazing Black women that really helped me find my voice around womanist theology and really helped me hone that and really think about religious education as a full way to educate the whole person, which meant I brought a lot of my dance background about who I am as a person, and realizing the Lord loves all of who we are, and we can bring all of that to our educational spaces. And so that's really a lot of what I bring is the embodiment piece and all of that. And I have a lot of administrative organizational things. I'm a color-coded person, literally color-coded calendar, color-coded, that is me also. So I'm just excited. I'm beyond excited to get to work for this organization. To work with everyone to help us grow to whatever this next stage will be. And again, grateful for Lucinda for, again, putting in so much work ahead of this. Even now as we're going through all of the files, I'm just like, Lucinda, just how? So I'm just excited to talk to all of you and meet all of you and answer any questions you may have. If I don't have an answer, I will find out because I am fully aware that I am still learning so much in this process. So hopefully that was enough about me, and I am happy to chat and take questions and answer anything you might like.
I think we're probably a small enough group that we can just chime in, but remember, in order to speak, you're going to have to unmute, and you can also raise your hand. I'll try to keep an eye on that, or there's a little way to actually raise your hand too, technically. So, but what questions do you have for Lakisha? Hanan.
I don't want to start with a question. I just want to start with a bunch of thank yous, especially to Jack and Mary and the wonderful committee that really did fabulous work. And you have candidates coming out feeling so good from a search process. It means that the chair people did a wonderful job. So Jack, many thanks to you and to Mary and the other members of the committee. And of course, this is the first of, I hope, many opportunities for us to give our thanks to Lucinda, who's just done an unbelievable job over many years holding us together. I can tell you as a president who had to undergo some medical problems in the middle of my tenure, having her there just was just fabulous, wonderful. So and I know that she's going to help us through the transition. And this is an opportunity to formally, on behalf of the board, to welcome Lakisha to the job. We're very, very excited for all the energy and enthusiasm, and we, I think, as a board, believe that your appointment really speaks beautifully to the future of the REA, to the youthfulness of the REA, to the values that we deeply cherish and hold close to our hearts. And we're trying very hard to live up to those values. It's not always easy to walk the walk and to do what we really believe, but we're trying very hard to do that. And I know you're going to help us. Your vision of the REA is going to help us to move along in that direction. So all those reasons, welcome and congratulations. And we're just all thrilled, we're as thrilled and excited as you are to begin this new journey together.
Thank you. I know there are questions you want to ask. It's okay. Yeah, no.
Norma.
I'll talk now while others are thinking. Welcome. I'm so glad. I have a simple question. One, I lived in New Haven for 9 years, and where will you be living? So that's a simple question. Then I have another.
So, so currently I'm still living in Richmond, Virginia. We'll make the move to Chicago in the summer. So we're still deciding exactly where in Chicago because we're not exactly familiar. So if you have thoughts, feel free to shoot them our way. We had planned some trips to go and visit, but right now we're not flying. So any and all advice, we happily welcome anything about Chicago. Other than Garrett's popcorn, I know about Garrett's popcorn. I love Garrett's popcorn and pizza. So those, I'm good. Everything else, feel free to let me know.
Well, my other question is, first of all, if I think back on being part of REA and operate then for 45 years or so, and I think now, how formative it was in my whole teaching career of teaching educational ministry at Wartburg Seminary in Dubuque, Iowa, Lutheran. But I think now, at the beginning, I mentioned the two people internationally from Europe that I'm in contact with. I'm also mentoring one of our REA members who is a PhD student living in Canada, who now is doing a PhD in England. And then I'm also kind of counseling one of our REA members who lives in San Francisco. So if I think of my life now, as it always has been, it's been these significant contacts with people through REA. So the mission of connecting now globally and interculturally and religious is so important. Also, semicolon, also, I realize as I'm in touch with congregations how sad I am that there's so little educational ministry or education going on in local congregations. Now that will vary from denominations and religious bodies. But if I think back to my beginning of working in a congregation years ago, I mean, we had teacher education, 5 different teacher education meetings every month for every teacher of every age group. And we had conferences for laity to grow theologically and grow in their teaching ability. And so there's both levels, the professional, you know, that I just said, and then also, do you have any thoughts about how what we do as professionals really can continue, and in a new age, even more important, help the local religious institutions care about education and be skilled and tooled for it. So that connection, that was a long question, but
no, I mean, but hey, it needed all of it. It needed all the context. So I'm grateful for it. So thank you. Can I have a transparent moment? So when I saw your name, and I was thinking about the books of yours that I teach in my class. So I just wanted to say thank you for your work. Just as an aside, I appreciate you and I'm grateful. And this is also a space where I'm like, I never knew if I would actually, you know, meet you. So I'm grateful. So thank you. But also as a connecting piece, I think that, so for me, this is part of the beautifulness that I love about REA, is that we have so many talented and amazing, folks here that are doing things around religious education, that are doing curriculum, that have, written, that are doing these amazing things. And I think it's about how we make sure we're connecting to make sure it's rooted with, things on the ground, right? I want to be sure that what we're doing isn't just living in the halls of the academy, but it's actually touching the ground as well. Because I mean, most of us aren't just religious educators, we're practical theologians too. We're actually doing this in our ministries in various places, right? And so what does it mean to make sure we're making those connections and making sure that the things that we're doing, we're actually putting into practice? And so for me, I love the idea of, what does it mean to, say, yes, we do religious education, but because everyone needs it, everything we do teaches. I fully believe, no matter what it is, whether it's in the church or in the classroom, everything we do teaches. And how do we make sure folks feel welcome to come to REA if they choose, right? How do we make sure, maybe we're sending invitations to different folks, right? How do we do some of that? But also, how do we make sure our meetings, when we're having them, are more accessible as well, right? So for me, one of my things I know I talked about in the interview is I would love for us to actually do more of the thing that we talk about. We talk about all the great theories. We talk about, how well we're doing religious education and curriculum, but let's actually do some of that, right? Let's actually walk through a practice. Let's actually walk through some of this. Let's actually do a mini lesson and actually say, hey, this is the actual theory that I use. This is how I implement it. This is some of and really walk through and do some of that. And not just there, but connecting throughout the year, right? Like mentoring groups, things like that. So I think if we use our resources, if we all kind of just start networking together, I think we can do a lot of that as well. Also, technology. Among the things that I think the pandemic has given us, and I don't like to say many things, but I think that the pandemic has really shown us how we can use technology in really helpful ways to connect even when we're not close. And so I think that's one of those things. How can we use what we're doing as resources? So I think we're working on also like a syllabus creation piece, but how are we taking on these different pieces and making it accessible to those that maybe can't make it to the meetings, right? Because some of those that are doing the work on the ground can't necessarily fly to where our meetings are. So I think it's how do we take this great work we're doing and make it accessible to those on the ground that are needing it, but also having like a feedback loop so that they can also let us know, how did it go? Did that feel right? Are there other things that we need to be thinking about and adding, and making sure it's a conversation, not just kind of a one way, here's our theory, go do it, but also listening. Did the theory work? oh, it didn't? Okay, well, let's have another conversation. Why don't you come and you tell us what worked for you? And let's tweak and work things out. So I just think we just need to have more conversation, more dialogue, and really just open this space. And I know that'll take steps. I know it's not going to happen all in one fell swoop. It might be extending invitations. It might be having personal conversations. You know, during the pandemic, maybe it's me having conversations with local congregations or different places, you know, just making it personal. So I'm not sure exactly what will work, but I know that I'm willing to try, because I think that that's where the future of what we're going to do is going to be. It has to be a conversation where so many people have to be a part of it. So I appreciate that question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Lakisha. I'm Jose. Nice to meet you.
Jose, nice to meet you.
Probably during the interview, you have heard that one of our challenges is how to grow our organization, both in terms of members and also to secure the continuation of the organization by building some financial strength. I'm the chair of the advancement committee. It's a committee that it's difficult to work with when you're at a distance and planning around these things. But I just want to say that I look forward to work with you. The secretary really is key in supporting the work of this committee as we seek for a lot of data information. And I know you're going through that and learning where things are. But hopefully, as you say, you will have the support to do that, and look forward to work with you in trying to start some of these strategies very soon.
Absolutely, and same. And yeah, I've heard your name. I've heard about the advancement. I'm hearing all of these things. So it's good to meet you as much as we can. And yeah, I look forward to doing everything I can to be as helpful. I know some of that is maybe helpful with grants or doing certain things, but I'm also all about creativity. So I'm happy to think outside the box as much as possible.
Good.
Right?
Good.
So yeah, we can do this. We got this.
Okay, great.
Absolutely. And it can just be about me. If you also just someone ask me about REA, it's fine.
Oh, and I'm sorry, and I have to say that I think Jack can be very helpful in terms of knowing where to go in Chicago. And if I'm of any help, I know the south of Chicago. Jack knows more the north, so it depends where you want to go.
There you go. So I'm covered either way. So thank you. Good to know. Because we're still figuring it out. I have no idea. But we'll get there, and I'm going to keep that in mind, Jack and Jose. Got it. And Cindy has already told me big puffy coat. So I think I'm going to have to, because I got rid of, I'm not going to lie, I got rid of the Boston coat when I left. Because I said, oh, I don't have to deal with the cold anymore. So it looks like I'm going to be getting another big puffy coat, and that's okay. We'll adjust. We'll be cold for a while. Oh, my aunt's on here. Hi, Aunt Cookie. Oh, I appreciate that. Thanks for coming. Any other questions?
Mary, I raised my hand.
Oh,
Was that Lucinda?
That was me. I raised my.
I see your hand, so Lucinda, say something. We can hear you.
I'm lurking. It's early here. I warned Lakisha, I'm not going to turn my video on, but I'm here. I wanted to thank you for the thanks, Hanan, but I love working with Lakisha. I couldn't be happier. We have so much fun, and she's very gracious, and she's awesome, amazing, and I'm just thrilled. But welcome, Lakisha, and I just can't say enough wonderful things about her. But anyway, so I have a question. I want to know very bluntly what your plans are for reaching out to our colleagues of color and how we can grow the organization and really be more honest and direct and become a community that's really, I don't know, more direct and honest and open and real with each other and grow that way.
I appreciate that, Lucinda. And I think probably some of our discussions, we talked about some of this, because that is something that's very important to me. And again, I believe in transparency. So I'll share with you some of what precipitated me like applying and wanting to be in this position is there was a meeting I went to a little while back, and I felt that there were some things that as a woman of color, I didn't feel as welcome. There were some things that as a woman of color, I didn't feel were open and receptive. I had actually brought my students to that particular gathering who were, at the time I was at Virginia Union, and they, it was just a historically Black institution. So many of my students were students of color that felt unwelcome, that felt, that just, left kind of a bad taste in their mouth about REA. And it took conversations with me saying, we can't, just like, we wouldn't do to our church, we can't just on this kind of one bad experience, right? We need to realize that there's more of a whole. And what it means is if you're going to be a part of this guild, what are you going to do to help make it better, to help them see places that we might need to grow? And so part of my applying was realizing that that's going to be part of what I bring, right? Is realizing that my voice matters, that my experience matters, and that because I will be around the table means that I will bring with me my woman of color heritage with me. And I'm going to make sure that it's heard as well as whomever else is around the table. And I know we have some actual really great representation coming up, I think in the new, Patrick Reyes, who identifies as part of the Latino community. I know we have Boyan Lee, who is part of the Asian American community. So I know we have different parts of various communities that are going to kind of be represented. And I think part of it starts with representation, right? Because it's hard to speak for other voices when the other voices are not present or at the table. So I think we've already started doing some of that work to start, right? Having representation, having people at the table. I think, one, how do we make sure we're listening to those voices, right? I know at the last gathering, we actually had like a little meet and greet for those that were international, for our international, as well as those that identified, I believe as Asian American. And so hearing, I think part of what we need to do is just stop and listen, right? Listen to what the needs are, listen to, where the passion is, what needs to be happening, and how we can effectively, implement more of that. And so my hope is to do more of that listening, to see ways where we can implement it. Maybe it's a mentoring program within the people of color community, right? Realizing, hey, as being honest, as a woman of color, I wasn't quite sure how to start conversations with, a person like Norma Everett. So like, I wasn't sure how to have those conversations or how to start them, or, especially as people of color, we sometimes feel that imposter syndrome. So how do we, have those real conversations about saying, I know I belong here, but finding my voice and finding my space is difficult, right? Like during the meeting where things didn't go well, no one got up and said anything. So how do we make sure we're empowering each other to say, hey, even when things do happen, because they will, it's messy, things are going to get messed up. How do we hold each other accountable to do the work and say, this can be a learning moment? Isn't that what religious education is about? How can we learn and grow and say, we can do better in these ways, A, B, and C, and let's actually work on implementing them. And I think this is my hiring is probably a part of that, right? This being honest about where we are. And I think, when we do our evaluations, I'm also big on evaluation and assessment, listen, hearing, maybe even instead of just paper, maybe actually doing something like this to actually have feedback as well so that we can hear and connect in different ways. But I think more than anything, it's going to take intentionality. And that I'm really want to push is like, how do we make sure we're intentional about making sure we bring people of color on? How are we intentional about making sure we're listening to voices, which means we need to make space at our meetings, make space during the year, make space at different times to hear, to listen. What would you like to implement? What are you not seeing that makes you not feel welcome? What do you wish we had that would make you feel more welcome? And I think that's what it's going to take, is listening, hearing, and then being ready to actually follow through. And at least for as long as I'm here, I will do my best to try to make sure that can happen. Did I answer your question, Lucinda? Hopefully.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lakisha. We're glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I think that's very important and near to my heart. So I appreciate that, Lucinda.
I see Addie's hand is up.
Yeah, welcome, Lakisha. I'm very happy to see you. Uh, it's nice to see somebody that looks like me sitting in the chair. And I appreciate your comment in response to Lucinda's question to you. But I would just offer you some encouragement to realize that not all lack of hospitality is about just the personal. Some of that is about structural and institutional and traditional customary practices that in fact exclude. Not intentional, but it's just the way it is. And I know you know that, and I don't have any doubt with your background and experience that you understand that dynamic. And so that policy, customary practices, those kinds of things have to be reviewed in a sense that no one would say that this is exclusive. But in fact, because it is not intentionally inclusive, almost by default, it becomes a structure or a tradition or a customary practice that doesn't feel welcoming to people. Like there's no place or space or safe place for people to talk honestly about their experience of REA or of being from another country or another culture or another. So, you know, you kind of fit in that, the fit in practices that all organizations have, and certainly REA has. They need to be reviewed if we are in fact talking about and trying to experience how to build the whole church, the people of God, the reign of God, in a way that welcomes everybody. So I welcome you, and I look forward to working with you. I don't know if I belong to any group in here anymore, but whatever that is, however I can be of assistance, I'm on board for it.
Thank you. I'm grateful for that, and it was lovely to see your face as well. It's always, and I feel like we feel that right when we're in spaces often, and you know, our face might be the only face that looks like our face. So I'm grateful to see your face as well. And I think I love the point that you bring up, because it's not just relational, it's systemic. And whether it's intentional or not, it's because of systems that have been in place for years, that haven't been checked, that haven't been called to the front, that haven't been, or just even just a question asked. Because sometimes it's just because people aren't around the table, they're not asking the questions, right? And again, so maybe it's not purposeful, but that's not on the top of mind. And so I'm excited to use my perspective and my view when I'm looking at things, right? Even from, again, I can't say this enough, how everything we do teaches. And so one of the things I actually do with my students is I have them bring in their church programs. And I actually have them walk through everything from the procession to the doxology. Why do you do it? What does it do? What does it teach? If I came in off the street, would I know what this means? What would this do for me? Right? And literally, if it doesn't teach, how do you need to change it? Do you need to get rid of it? What can you put that actually is meaningful? And so I hope to bring that same kind of mentality with me when I'm doing anything here with REA, is to see it with those new eyes and say, why do we do this? Why have we done it? What does it do? Who does it exclude? Who is missing? Why? What are the practices? So hopefully everyone will be patient with me when I do this. But that is also part of my plan, is, when we're planning meetings or when we're doing a new, policy, when we're looking at things, well, why? Who does this serve? Who is best, impacted by this, right? And so that's definitely something I plan to bring. And I think that will also help us. And of course, I hope that, my colleagues, like the Pastor Reyes, all the other folks that are bringing their particular, particularities with them will also ask similar questions about their cultures and heritage and places as well, that, even that I might miss, right? Realizing that even we're all of our scope can be limited. So I welcome all of that conversation. So I'm grateful for that. And I would, I would push us, because I hope to create during our time together and what we're doing, not safe space, just because for me as a woman of color, I find that that's impossible. I find that nowhere I go, I'm going to be safe. And there's no one that can guarantee my safety, right? There's, even on this call, someone could say something, they thought they were on mute, who knows? Hey, I got a head wrap on, whatever. I mean, who knows? Anything can be said at any point that could potentially be hurtful. So I just tend to say that, you know, it's not safe. Not only that, but many of my young people that are Black young people say, they would say it's BS to say that they're safe space because, you know, I'm a Black man in the world, and when people walk by, they lock their doors. So I just want to be able to get real and say, instead of trying to cultivate a space where we feel like people can be safe, because I think it's a privilege to be safe, and how do we make sure we challenge each other to question our privilege and say that if we can't be safe, then none of us should be safe, but we can hopefully cultivate a brave space, or however we want to name it, right? Personally, I like the word of clearing, because that's a very womanist term. So I would want to create a clearing space where we can be free and liberated, but a space where we can all be brave enough to just hold each other accountable. Realize it's going to get messy, realize we don't always know the right things to say, that we can mess up, but that we can hold each other with grace and light, and also accountability to do better, to be better, to hear voices, to listen when we need to listen, to realize when we don't know enough, and to try to, you know, keep doing what we need to do to move forward, to make sure everyone is represented, the full kingdom of God that can be represented. So so I'm very grateful for your words, and I don't take them lightly at all. And I don't take being a woman of color in this position lightly. So I hold that very dear, and I know I will do what I can to make sure voices are heard and make sure that's, yeah, that's important. So thank you.
Carmichael has his hand up.
Hi, Lakisha. I don't really have a question as much as I just want to say congratulations, as well as I'm very thrilled for REA to have you in this position, for you to be in this position, and for all the things that you can and will bring to the position. I'm excited about them, and I'm looking forward to working with you and being a part of REA as you give your leadership from your position. I congratulate Jack and all of the committee members for the great work of selecting you for this great position. Welcome to REA, and in this particular position, Executive Secretary.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. It's good to see you. Thank you. And also, I just wanted to know, I think Dean might have had to leave, but I'm just reading some of the comments, and I'm just appreciating that, as well as normal, differently abled, absolutely. All of the many differences that come, right? Age, all the, you know, gender, sexuality, identity, all of those things that come. How do we make sure our spaces think about that? So thank you, I appreciate that. I know those were kind of heavy. There doesn't have to be a heavy question if you don't want it to be. Or it can be.
Oh, hi, my name is Moon Son. I am teaching religious education at Yonsei University, Seoul, Korea. I deeply congratulate on Dr. Lakisha Lockhart, the new position of REA Executive Secretary. I deeply appreciate it. I subscribed firstly REA Religious Education, this journal, in 2004, and the first participation, the REA meeting is 2012, Atlanta, Georgia. So during time from Korea to United States, around 14 hours. During this time, my consciousness experiences so a big transformation from Korea to United States, so, and crossing the Pacific Ocean. So there are many difficult the barriers of the language and cultural differences, and different ethnicity. However, such as toddlers, but in that time, Dr. Lucinda Hofecker guided gently, very big hospitality, welcomed me, such as foreigner. I deeply appreciate very hospitable, welcoming for me. This is very important point for me. REA is very center in my life, academic life. So, and in my life, the REA time schedule is depend on my academic life. Therefore, I hope to. So, and, Dr. Lucinda Hofeker's kindness and gentleness continue for you. So every foreign scholars, since for me, REA is a very, very important channel to connect global scholars. Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing all members next year. So, 2021 REA annual conference. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
God bless. God bless.
Absolutely, Kamsamida. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
No, and I appreciate you because I know you all have your own group in REA as well, and I know that that's what you were mentioning, that you and Lucinda, you know, making sure that your group also has everything they need with religious REA in Korea as well. So I think that's amazing, and I look forward to being in touch as well. I only know a couple of phrases, so hopefully in our exchange, I will learn more as well. So I can.
So in South Korea, there are many religious scholars. They have a very good relationship with REA. So I think as Korean Christian education history deeply correlate with REA history. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Part of our history, absolutely. Thank you. I mean, I look forward to continuing this this robust history and moving it forward. So thank you. I appreciate it. Absolutely. Anything else? I'm taking notes, Slash. If you see me writing, that's what that is.
Thank you for those kind words, Moon-san, and I hope plans will go forward for people to travel to Korea in spite of COVID.
Absolutely. No other questions? Big, small, deep or not?
If nobody else has any questions or thoughts for Lakisha, I did want to share one or two of the comments that I shared at the search committee when we came to this conclusion. I shared these comments with the committee themselves, and then afterwards with Lakisha when we began to work together. And I think this is, I'm going to say this, something of this, what I want to say now, a bunch of different times in a bunch of different places. I think it's in tune with the spirit of what Lakisha was trying to say, but I don't think it's, we all of us know that we're facing at least two, if not more, really big crises in the world today, much bigger than at least I've ever faced in my lifetime. One of them, of course, is the COVID crisis, which has the strange thing that we can't actually meet each other face to face, but also the wonderful thing that Monsoon and I, one in Korea and me here in Israel and the rest of you in the United States, all of us can be online at the same time and have this conversation with one another, which is one of the strangely wonderful benefits of what is otherwise a distancing experience, but it is otherwise a crushing crisis, economically crushing, especially on people in difficult socioeconomic circumstances, which includes, of course, many people of color that we've been speaking about, but not only people of color. And it lands in the middle of a huge political crisis, which I tried to speak about. I wanted to speak about personally in my presidential address, but I wasn't able to be there, so somebody had to read it. But with the essence of what I wanted to talk about there, which is we've lost the ability to talk to one another across political differences, and deep political differences that are becoming even more difficult to address. And then, of course, there's the racial divide that we experienced in the first conference of REA that I came to in a long time, but that we saw so very dramatically with the terrible murder of George Floyd, and the beautiful, I don't know if you can describe it, the beautiful response of our Public Affairs Committee in the statement that they wrote on behalf of all our organization. These are big crises. And we're all of us living through them, each in our own ways, in different ways. I think that the REA has an extremely important contribution to make, both within North America and across the world today. And I think that Lakisha's appointment comes at a really propitious time that gives us an opportunity all to do something very valuable and important. I know that we all believe deeply in the mission of the REA and its ability to connect people across difference about religious divides, racial divides, socioeconomic divides, cultural divides, national divides. We're all aware that we haven't always done it as well as we should have, but I think that we're also aware of a deep desire to try and do it a lot better than we have. And I think this is an opportunity for all of us to join hands and to make an extraordinary contribution, first by example, by turning inward in the sense of figuring out what we can do, how we can create a life together in our guild that sends an example to our colleagues, to our academic colleagues, to our colleagues in the field, and to our students about how it might be possible to do these things differently. So I'm inspired by this moment because with all of the difficulty and pain and fear that we experience, I see in this appointment a ray of light for us to move forward together with Lakisha's energy and new ideas and creativity, and with a board that's extraordinarily supportive to those ideas. She's not coming in order to try and convince a bunch of people that we need to do it differently. We know we need to do it differently. She's coming in with a bunch of ideas to help us figure out how we can do the stuff we've already decided that we want to do. We don't even always understand what it means, and we don't always understand what it is that needs to happen, and we're going to figure that journey out together. There's a lot of stuff we don't understand, but there's a tremendous amount of goodwill to make it happen together. So this is a real moment of opportunity during a time of crisis, and I take away from this tremendous hope. And I thank all of you that were willing to join us. And I'm going to repeat this in a bunch of different places because I think it's the beginning of a new era in REA. This is a real sea change if we think about where the REA has come from. I mean, we have a Jewish Israeli president and an African American woman who's taking over as executive secretary at a time of tremendous difference. Who succeeded a Turkish Muslim president. These are not insignificant realities. These are deep and important realities to be followed by a wonderful Asian American and then Latin American successors in the jobs. We're trying to do it right. And with Lakisha's help and everybody's goodwill and willingness to roll up our sleeves and to walk into that brave space, or to that opening, or whatever we want to call it, and to hold ourselves accountable for what it is we really truly believe in, to be willing to try and get it better when we get it wrong, and to recognize that sometimes we'll be hurt and sometimes we'll be hurtful, not with intention, but with the desire to do it better. There's an opportunity here to make something very, very significant happen for ourselves, for our students, and for the wider communities in which we live across the world. And so I'm very inspired and excited by that. And I hope we can all join hands together to make that happen in the months and the years ahead.
Norma, I see your hand.
Let me thank you for that statement and add just briefly, at this particular time in history, we have a calling maybe REA with one voice, but most of all, well, I have a blog, The Church's Vocation in the Public World. And I'm thinking that individuals and faith communities want to know how to reflect theologically so that they can live and work and speak in the public world for such a time as this. And people want to do something, but we know how to have a theology of methodology, to help people know how to learn together, to help faith communities know how to think about the world and serve in the world. And this is a particular calling globally and throughout our faith communities to minister at this particular time. Thank you.
I love that word calling. That's a great contribution. I'm gonna quote you and copy you because I love the word, and I feel that we're called at this time. I think that it's a beautiful thing. I would say two things to that. In the education research community today, I'll speak now to the education side of our work together as opposed to the theological side, or in addition to, not as opposed to. The education research community has moved from a lot of talk about teaching to a tremendous amount of research on learning. The new discipline of vogue are the learning sciences. And the learning sciences are actually, among other things, based on creative new pedagogies around the kinds of technologies that we're now sharing together with one another. And learning, I think, is the key thing here, because while I do think we have a lot to contribute in what we know how to do, I think there's a tremendous amount that we don't know how to do. And I think that Adi, she pointed that out, I think, beautifully to us, and I think it's a point that we need to take on board. And because we don't know how to do it, doesn't mean we can't learn how to do it. And we're going to have to figure out together. We're going to have to learn how to do a bunch of new things together. And as an organization, first of all, I've been back in the REA just a couple of years, and I've learned a huge amount in that time, having come back to the North American context, being away from it for so very long. So we have a lot to learn together, and I think we're called to learn together. And I love that expression, and I'm excited. I'm excited for this journey because I think it's going to be meaningful to many of us, if not to all of us, and it has a really valuable and important contribution to make beyond our organization.
Thank you. Can I just give a shout out to Gabby? She just wrote in the chat that she is a student at Fordham, and this is her first REA experience or gathering. So welcome, Gabby. Hopefully you feel a little welcome, and thanks for joining us on this.
Thank you.
So hopefully this will be one of many.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you. No other questions? You don't want to know what I'm binge watching right now during the pandemic?
Oh, I want to know that. What are you binge watching right now during the pandemic?
I just got done binge watching The Babysitter's Club because, you know, memories. Warrior Nun, Black Lightning, surprising great superhero hero show. Yeah, so those have been my most recent binges.
I'll do 2 thumbs up for Warrior Nun.
What's your little boy's name?
His name is Edward. So my spouse is also Edward. He is a 3rd. So our little one is a 4th. So, you know, we also had to give him a little flavor. So we call him E4, like E40, you know, just to give him a little, you know, flavor there. So it is Edward, but we call him E4. But don't worry, I'm sure you will probably see him at some gathering because I'm all about, you know, he can come with because I want him to learn just as much from this space as any other space he enters. So you will probably see him. Nothing else.
Can I ask a question of the group? So not so much oriented towards Lakisha, but Norma, you said something when you first joined us about how good it was to see everybody. And I'm a little bit curious. We tried a couple years ago to do some, web stuff like this, live web stuff that didn't work so well. But I'm wondering if now, because we're in a different era and people are kind of isolated, if you all might enjoy, or do you think REA members might enjoy a semi-regular time to just gather, like a kind of virtual coffee REA or something like that? And you don't have to necessarily answer right this moment, but I do know that we're thinking about what other ways we can invite people into community. Jose?
Let me just respond to this and say that one of the reasons I came into this meeting is that I haven't seen all of you in a long time. So this is a new experience with REA. But if I have to go to different meetings of groups I have seen in the last 2 or 3 weeks, that will be more difficult. I think we have to be aware that there's a sort of exhaustion about, Zooming, and we cannot overwhelm people with this kind of technology. So, but I think that if it's, more sporadic, it's more intentional, there's a sort of a goal set into that meeting, that will be very helpful to include other people.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
Thank you for that. And just to follow that up, since there aren't any more questions for me, I would love to throw out if there are any, and again, it doesn't have to necessarily be on this call. You can send me an email, follow up. What other things would you all like to see that would make you feel welcome, that would make REA feel good, especially knowing kind of the times that we're in? I'm just curious any other ideas that other folks might have. And again, feel free to, let it marinate in your spirit, and then you can, send me a message or an email. But again, part of the listening this is also part of listening. We want to hear you as well. So any things that you would like to see happening in a guild that you are a part of, that, you would like to see grow, I'd love to know any of those as well.
Let me make a suggestion. Mary, I understand Jose's comment, but on the other hand, I think we're in a different world than we were 3 or 4 years ago. And I think part of the reason we gathered today is to welcome Lakisha, but also to talk with her. I think if we had some 30-minute times where there were some conversations, so that somebody knew ahead of time it was going to be a conversation, it was going to be about X, it was going to be from 9 to 9:30. At 9:30, we were going to turn it off no matter what happened. I think there would be some folks that would join and would feel included by doing that. And it doesn't matter if it's not the same people. It's just whomever, what 6 would be there on Wednesday at 9 to talk to Mary about technology or something like that. And I think something like that would be easier and more fruitful.
Addie, I see your hand.
I also wanted to say that it doesn't even have to be even as structured as Jack said. That's a great way. But sometimes we have, because of what's going on in the news, like we had a thing on John Lewis, and we just said that we're gonna, whoever wants to kind of debrief or whatever it is you need to do, talk about teaching, or how do we fold this into our teaching and make it real and live and on point and on time. We're gonna meet on Wednesday morning from 9 to 10:30. Be there if you can. If you can't, send your message to Mary. And so it turned it around more quickly and in a timely fashion, and it's not waiting for a conference, and it's not waiting for some activity and people who are in angst about facing their classes or facing their congregations about a particular sticky wicket, that how do I do this? And professionally and pastorally, and you can give some quick in action. And it doesn't have to be the same people, but it has to be people who are able to engage. And yeah, like me now, I have to get off because I have to go to another Zoom meeting. But that's okay too, because that's just the reality of our life right now. But it does give us a way to engage the critical issues and critical questions, and also perhaps to stir research at a level that's really, literally practical theology and the doing of theology together in this time and in this space. It could be a way that we do theology together and also talk about critical pedagogy as well, and bridge those gaps in real time and real space, and not just at a big conference, but at a shorter place. And we literally someone could grab it and do a paper on it in that sense. So anyway, there's the comment.
Yeah, Dr. Lockhart, my vision for our REA is that we could try to sustain diversity in every aspect, such as the settings for REA, both in faith-based institutions and in academic settings too, and also in terms of interreligious participation. All those visions, I would like REA to be a great umbrella that could accommodate and also assist, have resources to help even faith-based institutions to deepen their spirituality. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, we're now past the hour that we had said that we would gather. So mindful of people's time, I think, you know, Lakisha and I are always willing to talk to anybody, but I want to thank all of you who have come today. We really appreciate it. And I hope that you will stay in touch.
Thank you all. I'm here. Feel free to reach out.